I made a $30,000 mistake in buying a dental practice. I did not know who to hire. I was not aware. I was unprepared. And it cost me $30,000. My name is Paul, Dr. Nacho, dentalnachos.com. And if you're watching this and you want access to this content after this show, just text FLIX to 215-543-6454. Just text FLIX, F-L-I-X, to 215-543-6454. You will get a free 30-day pass to Dental Nacho Flix. Awesome content, top with CE. So you can watch this information again, or if you missed it live, you can watch it, because what I'm going to share with you during this show will help you not burn your nachos when buying a dental practice. Who is going to lead you in the most important decision of your life? It's one of my favorite places in Philadelphia, Washington Square Park. One of our most famous leaders here on earth, George Washington. So as I walk around the park, I'm going to share with you this story of how I made a series of mistakes that cost me $30,000 when buying a dental practice. So one of my favorite things to say is the story is the star. So let's start with this story. It was 2011. I worked with my dad and my brother in New Jersey. An equipment rep, supply rep, had heard of a dentist nearby that was unfortunately sick and needed to sell his practice. He alerted us that this opportunity was available. This represents one of my Nacho tips, ABC. Always be connecting. Connect with people who can help solve problems for you. If you are looking to purchase a dental practice, those people will be other dentists, specialists, supply reps, industry professionals. This is a great way to know about practices outside of brokers. But brokers, and I am one now, working for the seller for United Dental Brokers of America, brokers have access to the most practices. So this supply rep connected us with the broker. How I burnt my nachos, step one, was this broker was a dual representation broker. At the time, I was unaware, unprepared, didn't know how to protect myself. Dual representation is nacho nuts. I don't know how. This exists in the dental industry. To share what dual representation is, I will use a good joke from my friend, Rob Montgomery, excellent dental-focused attorney, and my podcast partner and personal dental-focused attorney. Now, I did not have Rob at that time. A dual representation broker claims they can represent the seller and the buyer in the same transaction. It would like someone telling you they are an Eagles fan and a Cowboys fan at the same time. Doesn't sound right. So how can a dual representation broker represent your interest and the interest of the seller at the same time? Additionally, the other nacho nuts part, and to start, how I cost myself money, was I had to pay an additional fee to work with this broker. So the dual representation broker collects a fee from the seller and the buyer. The level of toxicity of dual representation brokers can vary. This one was not the most toxic. There are some that are extremely toxic, and the percentage that you pay is nacho nuts. So number one, find out what type of broker you are working with. A dual representation broker can cause you to burn your nachos. So when I looked at this practice in 2011, there are 4 P's I want us to focus on. 4 P's: the process in buying a dental practice, the people, the price, and the profit. The process, the people, the price, and the profit. One of the things I like to share is that trying to learn too much information at once will overwhelm your mind. So take from this video, this content, take home tips, jot them down, put them on notes in your phone. There are ways for you to remember what we talked about here. And as I mentioned before, if you would like access to the show after the show, just text FLIX, F-L-I-X, to 215-543-6454. So back to my story of how I cost myself at least $30,000 in purchasing this dental practice. I shared with you number one way to burn your nachos. working with a dual representation broker. Process, people, price, profit. Let's start with the process. So, how do you start developing a plan to purchase a dental practice? The broker, you will connect with brokers. I recommend you connect with as many brokers as possible, even dual representation ones, but be cautious. The more brokers and people that know that you're looking for a dental practice, the more chances you have of having a dental practice be put in front of you. Now, getting back to our story, this practice collected $300,000 a year. $300,000 a year. And in collecting $300,000 a year, it had a profit, P word, of $100,000. I believe we can explain things to people like 4-year-olds. As I walk around Philadelphia telling you this story, the movie Philadelphia, Denzel Washington says numerous times, explain it to me like I'm a 4-year-old. How can we break down complex things like buying a practice into ways anyone can understand? And the 4 P's are part of it. Process, price, profit, people. So, the broker told me the price of this practice that collected $300,000 was $215,000, 71% of collections. It is a myth that dental practices are worth 60 to 70% of collections. So, number 2 way to burn your nachos in purchasing a dental practice. The number 2 way to burn your nachos in purchasing a dental practice is to judge the price based on percentage of collections. A tip, a golden nacho tip that I've learned working with United Dental Brokers of America and Bob Septak, the founder of the company, is that net profit, another P word, is the most important factor in valuing a dental practice. What is a quick way to understand or get the value of a dental practice from net profit? What is a system? It is 1.5 to 2 times the net profit. So if we take that $100,000 practice, 1.5 to 2 times was $150,000 to $200,000. $150,000 to $200,000. That was the range. The asking price was $215,000. The broker told me there was a lot of interest in this practice. Now, I want to point out, it is not the job of the broker to do the job for you. So sometimes when I'm the broker for a practice, I work with the buyer, but I work for the seller. I am not a dual rep broker, so I work with the buyer, giving the buyer information, helping them understand some of the data, but I am not there to help the buyer make an offer. The buyer should hire his or her own team. So I just trusted that, hey, this broker had a lot of interest. They may or may not have. So we offered the asking price. We offered the asking price for this practice. Now, paying the asking price for a practice is not a bad thing if the deal warrants that and your life situation is one where maybe paying the asking price makes sense for you. In our situation, this was the second practice for us, and there was room for us to negotiate, which we did not do. So, paying the asking price, the price of a practice should be based on profit, but percentage of collections is often used for it to seem as attractive as possible a sale from the seller angle. So let's just pause for a minute and talk about 2 different practices, go off of my story, and talk about 2 different practices. 2 different practices. Dr. Guac's practice makes $1 million a year. Dr. Nacho's practice collects $1 million a year. Both collect $1 million. Dr. Guac has $300,000 in profit. Dr. Nacho has $400,000. Do you want to pay the same for both of those practices? Now that you've learned that net profit is the key factor in determining the value of a practice, you would say no. But if you use percentage of collections, they would be equal. So that right there is an incredibly important tip for the process of buying a practice, to base it on profit, not asking price. Now, these are opportunities to purchase a business for the rest of your life. There's really no such thing as overpaying. That's a judgment. That's emotional. Overpaying. I overpaid, or it's overpriced. The broker's job is to get the best price possible for the seller. If I have 5 interested buyers in a dental practice, I'm going to be able to have a bidding war. If I have one interested buyer, I won't have that bidding war. Your job as the buyer is to make the best offer possible. Make the best offer possible after you've consulted with your team. Now let's get back to people. Who are some of the people that should be on your team? People that would be on your team: a dental-focused accountant, a dental-focused attorney, a financial planner, possibly a buyer coach. One of the things that I do when I am not a broker for the seller is I will be a buyer coach on a totally separate deal. I will help a buyer evaluate a practice, see if it makes sense before they start to engage numerous advisors. Think of what I do and what other people do in this industry, like the dentist that does the LOE PA. Take a look at the tooth, decide if it makes sense to refer to an oral surgeon, a periodontist, an endodontist. Give our patient an assessment of the restorability. How many times, if you're a dentist listening to this, has a patient maybe gone to an endodontist, come back with a root canal, and you said, oh man, this tooth is not even restorable. What are we going to do now? And it really wasn't the endodontist's job to determine restorability. So the beginning part of looking at a practice is a lot about the story. One of the Nacho tips that we'll give you now, so we talked about how to burn your nachos, work with a dual representation broker. Think that the price of the practice or the value of the practice is based on 60 to 70% of collections, when it should be based on net profit. Another aspect of this is the why. Why is the seller selling? One of the most important questions when I have a new buyer coaching client and they're excited to tell me that this practice has 6 ops and it's in the place that they want and the floors are the exact floors that they want and the color of the chairs, I say, okay, great. Why is the seller selling? If it's a weird why, dig more into it. If it's a 45-year-old dentist who said, I just don't want to be involved in dentistry anymore, why is that the case? Maybe their spouse says, hit the lottery. That's a weird why, but it's an okay one. Maybe they couldn't make this practice work and they want to go down the street and they don't want to tell you that up front. There's a lot of bad stuff that happens in the practice transitions world, because I want to share with you, one way to burn your nachos is not realizing this world is highly unregulated. Dentists have boards. Attorneys have boards as well. There are rarely any broker boards. It's important to ask good questions of the broker and hire people on your team to help protect you. Just going back to my story here, this practice, a more reasonable price for this practice was closer to $150,000. Why? Let me tell you why. Additionally, look at the people that work in the practice. In this practice, they had a front desk and a hygienist, no assistant. A front desk and a hygienist, no assistant. That is weird. So if an assistant was to make $30,000, because most dentists work with an assistant, that would decrease the net profit. So if we took over this practice and we did the same as the dentist before us and brought in $100,000, but we had to hire an assistant, now we're down to 70. So that's a factor involved. Sometimes another one is, this is why a dental-focused accountant is so important. One thing I'm going to say to you is don't be dentist cheap when buying one of the most important things in your life. Do not be dentist cheap when buying one of the most important things in your life. Hire good advisors and pay them. If you cannot figure out how to pay a dental-focused accountant and a dental-focused attorney, I will give you this tough love. You're not ready to buy a practice. If you cannot figure out how to pay a dental-focused accountant or a dental-focused attorney, you are not in the right situation to buy a practice, because the thousands of dollars you pay them will prevent you from burning your nachos. A dental-focused accountant will help you dig into the cash flow, the most important part of this process. How much money really comes out of this practice? And unless you are an accountant, think of it like an endodontist finding MB2. Unless you do this all the time, no one else can do this as well as a dental-focused accountant. They're the endodontist of this world. So the dental-focused accountant and dental-focused attorney are the two most important people on your team. They are the ones who are going to protect you the most. The dental-focused accountant is often one of the first people I recommend one of my buyer coaching clients talks to, so they can get the real cash flow. Because let me give you an example. If somebody who was earning $180,000 a year as an associate wanted to buy the practice that we bought as our second practice, they would take quite a decrease or dip in income. Now, to some people, that is no problem because they want to own a practice. To other people, they have expenses that do not allow them to do that. So the dental focused accountants say to the dental focused accountant, let's look at these P&Ls, let's look at these tax returns. Another thing to share, which I did not know, P&Ls are something the dentist does. Tax returns are what go to the government. So P&Ls can be helpful. Tax returns are the real story. One of the things I will also add in is that a dental focused accountant will help you understand the concept of add backs. So if in a practice that does $1 million a year, the dentist takes home and they're paid $200,000, but they pay $30,000 in 401k and $20,000 towards their car and $10,000 in health insurance and $5,000 in quote unquote travel, those can be add backs that you may not need to spend as a new owner. So that enhances the profit. So if you look at a tax return and it says a dentist only makes $180,000 on $1 million practice, make sure you dig into that with your dental focused accountant, because your dental focused accountant will say, nope, they actually make $290,000 and there's $110,000 of add backs. So getting back to how I burnt my nachos in this practice purchase, one, dual representation broker, did not ask enough questions, had to pay an actual fee, which I think is at nacho nuts. Two, did not ask enough questions on the purchase price, paid the asking price, did not dig into the net profit. Those two things alone add up to at least $30,000. Three, I did not account for the fact that the dentist didn't have an assistant, which should have lowered the asking price or should have been part of the conversation. Four, this is the people part, and sometimes people situations can get messy. Sometimes they can get emotional, but this dentist was unfortunately ill. So he had a timeline for us to take over, which was a very fast timeline. And while I wanted to be a good colleague and friend, this is something on the seller's side of the deal that they had this issue. And the goodwill transfer, goodwill is, will these patients stay in the practice after it is sold? Goodwill is the majority of the practice purchase price. So since the seller would not be able to stay on and transition, that is a factor for the goodwill. And while I would want to be as kind, but also a firm, a buyer as possible, if I went back to 2011, like Nacho, Marty McFly, one of my favorite movies, Back to the Future, I would have looked at myself and said, here are the factors, Paul, that you should consider. Here are the factors that you should consider in making your offer. So we talked about process, we talked about price, we talked about people, we talked about profit. The process part is something when you buy a practice, you need to know each step of the process backwards, forwards, what to do, where to go, and you need your team to help you. Think of building a house, but instead of a house, you're purchasing the business that that is going to determine your livelihood for the next 30 years. So there's all different people inside of this house that will help you along the way, or help build this house. Dental focused attorney, dental focused accountant, financial planner, banker. Banker is a key part. Nothing happens unless the bank wants to give you money for this. Nothing happens unless the bank wants to give you money for this. So connecting with bankers early is key. As part of Dental Nachos, we have relationships with key resources and sponsors that can help you get financing. If you would like to meet any of our key resources and sponsors, you can email us at salsa@dentalnachos.com or just text BANK, B-A-N-K, to 215-543-6454. Text BANK to 215-543-6454. As a buyer coach who helps dentists regularly with this practice process, not connecting with a bank early enough is often a way to burn your nachos, because bankers are people too, and I want to use this example. When it is the week between Christmas and New Year's, and everybody wants to get in for their dental work, and you think, you had the whole 51 previous weeks to get in, and now they want to cram themselves in, those patients are often not the ones you look most forward to seeing. Those patients are often the ones who wait till the end of the year, and they have made their problem your problem. Their problem your problem. So you may have a great practice deal on the table, and they may say, hey, can you get financing? And a broker might say, what's the financing you can get? And if you haven't talked to a bank and you say, I want to talk to you tomorrow, represent this bank, they may have other deals they're working on. So connect with banks early. Develop relationships. ABC, always be connecting. Connecting with banks is free. I don't recommend you connect with a dental-focused attorney tomorrow if you don't have a practice to look at. I recommend that you know one. I recommend maybe you get some recommendations. I recommend you listen to some podcasts. Same with dental-focused accountants. Bankers are a huge part of this process. I like to say the bankers are like the mom, because when we were kids and we had what we would call a nacho nuts idea, only our mom would tell us if we could do this or not. So you say, Mom, can we do this? And no, you're not doing that. You're not sledding down the hill. I don't know, some old bag, right? Get back in the house. You're not doing it. The banks are the mom. They're the ones who hand over the money. Without the banks, nothing happens. So you may love the philosophy of dental care in that office. You guys might have the same philosophy of occlusion. I hope so. You want to know mine is? My philosophy of occlusion? Not high. I hope it's not high. Is that not high, Mrs. Smith? Good, that's good. So going out of order with the process is another way to burn your nachos. As a broker, let me give you some insider information. I often have practices where there's more than one dentist who wants to buy it. They could be super nice dentists. Let's say the dentists are both super nice. Let's say the dentist, both are interested. The one who has the banking relationship and is moving forward with that is usually the one who's going to win on the practice. The one who asks 15 questions about active patients, about how many prophies are done on Tuesdays before getting bank financing, is likely going to lose out because they're going out of order. I want to tell you about the process now, and we'll have multiple of these segments, so look for other segments like this. To stay connected with us, the best way to do it is through our text platform, our text community. Just text nachos to 215-543-6454. Text nachos to 215-543-6454. You will be alerted to other segments like this. It is impossible to do the entire practice purchase, practice process, practice people, practice price, practice profit in one segment. What I try really hard to do is to give you digestible pieces of information, stuff you can plan to, stuff you can do right now. What can you do right now? You can connect with banks if you're interested in buying a practice. You can connect with banks. You can start listening to podcasts from dental-focused attorneys and dental-focused accountants. I know two awesome ones that are also sponsors of Dental Nachos. Listening to podcasts are free. It's a great way to get information that can help you. If you want any podcast recommendations on this process, just reach out to us at, you guessed it, 215-543-6454 and put in podcast practice purchase recommendations, or you can listen to ours, thedentalamigos.com. We have awesome info on there. So let's just talk about the process. Like if you were on a baseball diamond and you had to score a run, first base, second base, third base, home plate. One, find out about practice through contacts or through brokers. Connect with as many brokers as possible. Connect with as many people as possible. Be professional, return phone calls, return texts, get to know people as people. This is a huge people-oriented thing. Your likability during this process will come in handy. So, connect with brokers and people in the industry to learn about practices. 2, sign NDAs as needed by brokers. Read the NDAs carefully. If one's with a dual representation broker, please read it carefully so you're not signing up to pay some fee that you don't want to pay later. This is one reason, I will say, where connecting with a dental-focused attorney early in the process to help you look at NDAs could be helpful. I am a buyer of practices and I sign most NDAs without a ton of scrutiny, but I'm sharing with you I bought more than one practice. If it is your first practice purchase, it is a good idea to potentially have a dental-focused attorney look at it. Sign NDA, you find out about the practice. Talk to the broker, get to know them, share your goals, hopes, and dreams. One of the things we do at Dental Nachos is hopes and dreams calls. If you would like us to discuss your dentisting hopes and dreams and buying a practice, hiring an associate, buying a second practice, selling a practice, just text HOPES to 215-543-6454. Text HOPES to 215-543-6454. So to get back to the process of this entire thing, the process. So connect with brokers, sign NDAs, meet with the dentist. Here's a really good tip. Meet with as many dentists as possible. Talk to as many dentists as possible. As a broker, it will drive me nacho nuts when I talk to a buyer and they want to know about a practice and they say, I wanted one more in central Jersey, not central to north. What you want to do is express interest. You always learn something talking to and meeting other dentists. This is a huge life decision. You may meet a dentist who you don't want their practice. It's too small, it's too big. It's like the Goldilocks, okay? It's too small, it's too big, the profit's too high, the profit's too low, there's too many ops, too little ops. But guess what that person may have? That person may have friends his or her age that they may introduce you to. Great. So connect with the dentist, have as many visits as possible, as many phone calls as possible. Then, if you're interested in the practice after seeing it or talking to the dentist and getting basic information, one thing I will share with you, do not ask for every piece of information after the NDA. That's unfair to the broker. The broker does not want to spend hours with you going over how many fillings the dentist did July of 2018, and then you say, I don't really want to see the practice. I will share with you, golden nacho tip, I look to buy practices all the time. This is all I need. I'm going to be Dr. Paul Goodman, the practice buyer. You be the broker. I'm talking to you. Hey broker, I'm interested in this practice. This is all the information I need to talk to the dentist. This is all the information I need to go meet with the dentist. This is a golden nacho tip. If you act like this and follow this system, I predict you will see more practices and have a better chance of finding the right fit for you. You will definitely see ones you don't like, but this is all I need. Where is the practice located? How many ops, total collections? That's all I need to talk to a dentist. Where's the practice located? How many ops, total collections? It's 5 operatories outside of Center City, Philadelphia, collects $800,000 a year. I'd like to talk to that dentist. I don't need to know how many fluoride treatments he did now. I don't need to know the profit now. I will need to know that later. So you talk to the dentist, find out if it's the right fit for you in that regard. That's going to rule a lot out. Then you're going to work on a letter of intent. You're going to say, hey, this is what I intend to purchase the practice for. The letter of intent is non-binding, but I highly recommend you have a dental-focused attorney help you with the letter of intent because it is a preview, a precursor to the asset purchase agreement. The letter of intent will have an offer contingent on financing. If someone wants to submit a letter of intent for one of my practice selling clients, I need to know that they have a financing relationship, who that is. It doesn't have to be a dental nacho sponsor. It could be someone I've never met. It could be someone that I know, but I would like to hear from a banker, oh yes, I've talked with Dr. Tad Taco, okay, Dr. Tad Taco, and we can commit to finance for him as long as this practice looks good. Another thing, the banks, sometimes they're like your grandmother. They say, people tell me, a bank approved me for $1 million. That's great. What that means is they don't think you're a terrible risk. They did not approve you for $1 million on this practice. They just approved you for $1 million to make you feel good about yourself, which is great. But when it comes down to buying the practice you're looking at, Dr. Sad's Salsa Seller, Seasoned Age Dentist Salsa Seller, they're going to look at that practice closely. So getting the documents from the broker to get financing at that point is important. So asking for more documents and data after you talk to the dentist. Here's my tip. Ask for more data and documents after talking to the dentist or meeting with the dentist. 2 reasons. 1, you will ingratiate yourself and seem more likable to the broker. 2, you're going to save yourself a lot of time because a practice you think you don't like the personality of the seller. Or you might not think you like the personality of the seller at all. You meet him or her and you like that person. So after meeting with the seller, ask for more data, look to make an LOI. If your LOI is accepted, letter of intent, this is when the hard work starts. It's called due diligence to go from the LOI to the asset purchase agreement. LOI to asset purchase agreement. Ideally, this should be a 60-day process. It can be longer. Your dental-focused attorney should put deadlines in there. This is when you can get all the information. This is when you can ask how many patients came in on Tuesdays in 2017. Just kidding, please don't ask that question. But this is when you can get information like the active patients, the number of fluoride, the different things like that. Those are the things that you get between LOI and asset purchase agreement. This is when you firm up financing. This is when you start to talk more about people things. Are you going to keep the team on after the transition? Are you going to keep the whole team, some of the team? What's the culture like? This is when you can look at some of the equipment. Is there something that needs to be replaced? The LOI to asset purchase agreement is the most work in the practice transition process. It's when you rely heavily on your dental focused attorney. There will likely be there'll definitely be a restrictive covenant for the dentist after you purchase the practice. There may be an employee agreement. Is the dentist staying on or not staying on? So this here, we've gotten to 30 minutes of time. This here for this segment is perfect. This segment has been how not to burn your nachos when buying a dental practice. A story of how I made a $30,000 mistake when I bought our second dental practice. Learn from my mistake. Learn from where I dropped nachos and had them burnt. Not asking the right questions, not having the tough conversations, working with a dual representation broker and not being cautious enough, not hiring the right team, not knowing who is available to help me, being unwilling to kind of offer lower than the asking price because I didn't know that you could really do that at that time. These are things where I wish I had that $30,000 back, but I don't. But what I hopefully can help you with is not losing $30,000, or more importantly, not buying the practice that is not the right fit for you. So if I can help you in any way, you can reach out to me at salsa@dentalnachos.com. Text any question you want to 215-543-6454. My goal is to introduce and infuse more responsible information into this world of practice transitions. Over the past 4 years of being a practice broker, being a buyer coach, being someone who wants to buy practices myself, somebody who communicates with DSOs regularly, somebody who helps dentists find jobs regularly, somebody who discusses buy-ins, an entire other topic. Buy-ins can most definitely burn your nachos. They can be awesome or awful. My goal is that we connect better as professionals. It's possible for these deals to be win-wins for both parties, but we have to be able to communicate, something dentists do not do well with each other at all, because dentists don't communicate well because we work in caves. By ourselves or with one other dentist, we barely come out. Now during this time, another C word, the coronavirus, we're coming out less. So we have to get out there and talk to more people, connect with more people,